My housekeeper's panicked voice sliced through our peaceful dinner like a knife through silk. "Mrs. Whitaker, there's a moving truck outside your house and a woman downstairs with keys." I froze. My fork clattered against my son's plate with a sound that echoed like a gunshot. Across the table, Ethan, my 38-year-old son, and his wife Lily stared at me in confusion. But I already knew who it was. Only one person in the world would have the audacity to break into my home. My daughter Claire. 6 months earlier, I had discovered Claire's plan to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could gain control of my estate. Ethan, an attorney, had helped me block her fraudulent guardianship petition. I thought we'd stopped her for good, but this was a new level of betrayal. "Maria, get out of there right now," I ordered into the phone. "Lock the door and leave immediately." My housekeeper had just gone back to retrieve her reading glasses. That forgetfulness might have saved everything I owned. Ethan was already on his feet, grabbing his keys. "Mom, what's happening?" "Your sister," I said flatly. "She's moving into my house." We sped through the evening traffic, headlights cutting through the dark, my mind spinning. I should have seen this coming. Her husband Sean had done yard work for me over the summer, her idea to help them earn a little extra. He must have made copies of my keys then. They'd been struggling financially ever since Sean lost his job in April. Instead of asking for help, Claire had turned to manipulation, and now outright crime. "There," Ethan said grimly, pointing ahead. Police lights flashed in my driveway. I had already called 911, reporting a burglary. What I hadn't told them was that the burglar was my own daughter. The moving truck sat in my circular drive like it belonged there, its back doors yawning open. My furniture, my grandmother's rocking chair, the china cabinet, even the oil painting of my late husband was stacked inside. 2 police officers stood on the porch talking to Claire, who looked calm and confident, as if this were all a misunderstanding. "Well," I muttered, stepping out of the car, "she's about to learn a lesson in consequences." When Claire saw me walking up with 2 additional officers, her smile faltered before snapping back into place. "Mom," she called brightly. "Perfect timing, we were just getting settled in." Officer Ramirez, a tall woman with a no-nonsense expression, turned to me. "Ma'am, this woman claims to be your daughter and says she has permission to be here." "My daughter, yes. Permission?" I held up my keys. "Absolutely not." Sean appeared in the doorway carrying a box labeled Eli's room. Behind him, my grandchildren peeked around the corner, their frightened faces breaking my heart. This wasn't their fault. "Ma'am," Officer Ramirez said, "we'll need proof. This is your residence." I handed her my license and house deed. Ethan produced legal documents proving the prior guardianship fraud. As the officers reviewed everything, Claire's composure began to unravel. "She's confused," Claire protested. "My husband lost his job. We were evicted. I have a right to be here." I stared at her in disbelief. "You have a right to ask for help, Claire. You don't have a right to take it." When the officers asked how she'd gotten the keys, I told them the truth. Sean went pale. Within minutes, the situation shifted from family dispute to criminal case. The moving crew confirmed that they'd been hired by Claire Davis to move my belongings into storage. "Mrs. Whitaker," the senior officer said, "we have probable cause to arrest both parties for breaking and entering, theft, and conspiracy." I looked through the window at my grandchildren, Emma and Eli, standing there with tears streaming down their faces. "Officer," I said quietly, "press full charges. But I want temporary custody of the children. They shouldn't suffer for their parents' mistakes." Claire screamed as she was handcuffed. "You can't take my kids." "You should have thought about that," I said softly. The emergency custody hearing the next morning was brutal. Judge Andrews reviewed the police report, my documentation, and Ethan's legal briefs. Claire's public defender claimed she'd acted out of desperation. Sean's lawyer painted him as an unwilling accomplice. When it was my turn to speak, I told the court plainly, "They broke into my home and tried to steal everything I own, including my dignity." "Mrs. Whitaker," the judge asked, "are you prepared to care for your grandchildren while their parents face charges?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "They deserve stability." Temporary custody was granted. Claire and Sean were remanded into custody pending trial. Watching my daughter's tear-streaked face as they led her away, I didn't feel triumph, just weary relief. Justice, at last. Over the next few weeks, I discovered something unexpected. I was good at being a full-time grandmother. Emma, 10, and Eli, 8, adjusted quickly. Our days filled with homework, bedtime stories, and laughter that had been missing from my house for years. But one morning over cereal, Emma asked the question I dreaded. "Grandma, why did Mommy take your things?" I took a deep breath. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices when they're scared. Your mommy was scared about not having a home, but instead of asking for help, she took what wasn't hers. "Like when Emma took my Pokemon cards?" Eli asked. "Similar," I said gently, but much more serious. They accepted that. Children have a way of finding truth simpler than adults ever can. 2 weeks later, Detective Moore from the local precinct called. "Mrs. Whitaker, we've uncovered additional evidence. It appears your daughter had been planning this for over a year." At the station, he showed me documents proving Claire had researched guardianship laws, accessed my bank accounts, and even tried to obtain my medical records. "If you hadn't pressed charges," he said, "she would have used this incident to argue you were unfit to live independently." The realization chilled me. Claire hadn't acted out of desperation, she'd executed a calculated scheme. 4 months later, the trial began. The courtroom buzzed with reporters covering the sensational story of mother testifies against own daughter in home invasion case. Claire had hired a private attorney who urged her to plead guilty. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence. When they called me to the stand, I told the truth about the manipulation, the betrayal, and the heartbreak. "Mrs. Whitaker," the prosecutor asked, "was your daughter's behavior calculated or impulsive?" I looked at Claire, my beautiful, broken child, and said quietly, "Both." She calculated every move, but she impulsively destroyed what mattered most in the process. The jury found her guilty on all charges. Claire was sentenced to 4 years in prison with eligibility for parole after 2. Sean received probation for cooperating with investigators. As the bailiff led her away, she whispered, "Take care of my kids." "I will," I promised. 18 months passed. Life regained rhythm. The children thrived in school and therapy. One morning, my phone rang Claire's parole officer. "She's been granted early release and approved for supervised visitation." I hesitated. The children were happy, stable, but I remembered the woman in court who had finally accepted responsibility. "All right," I said, "under supervision." The visit took place at the family court center. Claire looked different, healthier, softer somehow. She'd gained weight, her hair neatly tied back, her voice quiet. "Hi, babies," she said. Emma stood close to me. "Hi, Mommy." Eli tilted his head. "Are you coming home now?" Tears filled her eyes. "No, sweetheart, I can't come home yet. I did something very wrong." The hour was awkward but honest. She apologized to them, answered their questions, and didn't make excuses. When it was over, she turned to me. "They don't really know me anymore. That's what happens when you abandon them," I said gently. "I know," she whispered. "I'm trying to change." 6 months later, Claire had earned weekly visitation. She was attending addiction recovery meetings, working at a nonprofit that helped women re-enter society, and living in a modest apartment. Addiction. That was the missing piece. She confessed she'd become dependent on prescription painkillers after a car accident years earlier, and that addiction had fueled her paranoia and greed. For the first time in years, I believed her. Emma, now 12, remained cautious. "Mom needs to learn how to take care of herself before she takes care of us," she said one evening, with uncanny maturity. She was right. But slowly, trust began to rebuild one supervised meeting at a time. 2 years after Claire's release, she earned unsupervised visitation. That Saturday, she sat in my living room, the same one she'd once tried to steal, and told me the story of her turning point. "There was this woman in prison," she said softly. "She stole from her elderly parents, too. When her father died, she wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. Watching her break down made me realize that would be me in 5 years if I didn't change." She paused. "I wrote you a letter that night, 27 pages of apology, but I never sent it. I realized words weren't enough. I had to prove it through actions." I remembered the unopened letters forwarded through Ethan's office. Maybe I should have read them. "I spent so long resenting your strength. Claire admitted. I wanted your independence, your control, but instead of learning from you, I tried to destroy you. And now, I asked quietly, now I just want to be someone my children can respect, even if they never fully trust me again. I looked at her, the humbled, sober version of my daughter, and felt something shift. I didn't need her apology anymore, but she needed to give it. You can't undo what you did, I said, but you can keep proving you've changed. She nodded. I will. 2 more years passed. Emma was thriving in advanced classes. Eli had become the star pitcher on his Little League team. Claire attended their games, always respectful of boundaries, never overstepping. One afternoon, while she helped Emma with algebra at my kitchen table, I realized the house no longer felt haunted by betrayal. Instead, it pulsed with life laughter, piano practice, the clink of dishes. The scandal had faded from public memory, but our family had found something far more lasting, peace. Grandma, Eli called from the yard, can Mom come to my game next Saturday? If she wants to, I said, and Claire's grateful smile said everything. Later that night, I received a message from Emma's teacher. Congratulations, Emma has been selected for the academic competition team. Can Mom come? Emma asked immediately. If she can get time off work, I said, watching Claire's eyes fill with tears. Those were the small victories that mattered now. 4 years after the break-in, our family gathered for my granddaughter's first birthday, Ethan and Lily's baby. Claire stood beside me in the kitchen assembling sandwiches. Outside, the children laughed in the yard she'd once tried to claim as hers. Mom, she said softly, thank you for letting me be part of this. 4 years ago, those words would have been manipulation. Today, they were gratitude. You earned it, I told her. As I watched 3 generations of my family playing together, healed, imperfect, and stronger than ever, I realized something profound. Claire's greatest crime wasn't trying to steal my house or my money. It was nearly stealing the chance for all of us to grow. But we did grow through truth, boundaries, and forgiveness. And as I sat beneath the oak tree in the yard she once tried to take, I understood the real inheritance I'd built for my family. Not wealth, but wisdom. The courage to love without enabling, to forgive without forgetting, and to choose healing over resentment. That is the legacy I'll leave behind.